Hey everybody, it's Thorfinn here, and today I want to react to this video made by TDAWG. And the reason why I want to react to this video is because it's why Collegiate Valorant is not a path to pro. And as a collegiate player, I have a lot of insight into this. I played collegiate last semester. I'm currently going to a new school, so please keep that in mind. The school that I'm going to now, which I have not announced yet, or it's not, I don't really know. They said that they're gonna announce me. They probably won't because I'm kind of a shitter, Loki. But anyways, this is not a bearing on them at all. Every encounter that I've had with them so far has been fairly good, and I have not really interacted with too many of their players to have the same idea and same sentiment towards them as I do my last collegiate team. And I'm not gonna say who my collegiate team is. It's public, you can find that information, but I'm not here to flame them or the org or whatever, or organization, I don't know, like the director and things like that, because everything with them was fine. It's more of players and things that I've experienced in the collegiate community.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Today we will be talking. I don't know if he realizes how horrible it is for an Oxygen esports to just be disbanding and not coming back.
This is another thing. This is like his first main point that I think is very crucial. I think the Valorant community is torn between tier 3, tier 2, tier 1, and collegiate, and I think that separation and divide leads to jealousy and stupid conflicts that don't really make any sense. Realistically, like tier 3 and collegiate are kind of the same in my opinion. They share similar values. You're playing mainly just a lot of tournaments that don't necessarily hold a lot of weight. Tier 2 is where you'll see it, like Mr. Funhavers and stuff like that. That's really the only tournament that holds any weight anymore, right? Or Challengers Open Qualifiers. Those are the only tournaments throughout the year that you can play hold any weight. Any other tournament outside of that, unless it's a LAN, really doesn't matter. So I think attacking other sources of Valorant, other levels of competition is really stupid.
They were in Valorant in Europe, and then they came to NA with an academy team, and then they qualified for Challengers, and then they played another year of Challengers with the intent to actually... Collegiate players, at the higher level at least, the higher echelon, they feel a certain type of way inside, and I don't think that they would all admit this, but I feel they feel a certain way inside that they're not taken serious. It's not pro, you know what I mean? It's not the highest form of gameplay, and that kind of like offends them, that it's kind of like a joke. And then on the other hand, like that's what they want to be, right? That's what the dream is, going pro, making a living out. That's what they want. That's what they want to have. That's what the goal was, right? And then it's kind of like half-assed. There's like a little bit of an imposter syndrome developed, okay, through some collegiate players who have big egos and stuff like that. It's very silly. Guys, Collegiate is a complete joke. We all know this. I mean, look at the FFs that are happening. FFs happen all throughout all leagues. People are just being forfeited. You don't.
So he brings up another problem with FFing. Personally, I have never had a problem with FFing. People have attempted to FF us or things like that, but it's always been resolved by admins. Most of the time, admins are pretty good about that. Not only that, I've never personally tried to FF people. The only time that I've even considered to FF people is if they bring in people that aren't on their official rosters, because I think that's really weird and just not good practice. But even then, I've never done it. Me and my team would joke about it. We've considered it maybe like once, but in the situation we considered it, we couldn't because the match was already live. So yeah, honestly, that is completely a fair take. There's a lot of FFs and things like that because of prior schedules and stuff. Now, I know of some things where a team will try to FF a team if they have to reschedule, and it's not rescheduled to a spot where the team who didn't need to reschedule could play and things like that, which is really stupid. Personally, I think that matches in general are usually scheduled fairly late at night, especially for Eastern times, which is the times that I played on. So for me, I don't really understand why these matches are necessarily getting FF'd unless to play for challengers and things like that, and to try to make to tier 2, which again, you very specifically said in this video, TDAWG, that Collegiate is a path to tier 2, which is not a path to pro, right? which I think is completely fine and definitely a very acceptable answer. The only collegiate player that has ever went pro is Jakey, right? And now he's in tier 2. So, I mean, I completely understand. But my sort of take on that is most of the time when teams are FF'd, it's usually teams that are scumming FFs and just not being very considerate, because again, people have lives and things like that. That's why subs are a thing in these tier 3 events. There are teams that have won Mr. Funhavers with substitutes and or like just free agent teams, right? So realistically, to what's more of a thing is everything's on a tighter schedule than whatever. So to really hate on FFing, I think is not necessarily fair, because you could have FFs in other times. And there's examples in tier 2, right, where matches get rescheduled because life happens. These people have lives outside of tier 2. Some of the players that you play against, T-Dawg, probably don't make just all of their money from playing Valorant, and they have to do other things outside of that. And pretty much this is kind of the same situation, especially in tier 3 players playing Mr. Funhavers and stuff like that. People have to reschedule and sub out and things like that all of the time. So I think getting on this FF thing is a little weird for me, especially because most people that actually take it seriously won't FF. But that's kind of another thing that needs to be addressed.
Don't show up, you can't play, classes, unable to go there, whatever it is.
The whole classes excuse for any player is really dumb. Me specifically, this is my first year here, and I don't really necessarily know the times of practice. I know that they're towards the later times, but if you've ever signed up for college classes, even as a freshman, you're treated as an adult usually. It's not like high school, right, where you just kind of get whatever classes. You get to pick your own classes and pick your own time slots. So if you can't play a match because of classes, most of the time that's either on the org's fault for scheduling it during like work hours, like towards like that 5 p.m. mark, and then anything earlier than that, or you're just not committed, which is a completely separate thing than collegiate itself, right?
I've watched in real life a LAN tournament with thousands of dollars on the line. Blinn Esports playing a team in an elimination stage. The team that was playing Blinn Esports went up a map on them. They end up losing the game 1-2. In the second and the third map, when they were losing to Blinn, they were typing in the chat. I was sitting behind them. They were typing in the chat, LMFAO, you guys take this so serious. We don't even play this game. LMAO, I haven't opened this game in 3 weeks. Like, if I'm an esports director, not only am I just taking your scholarship and setting it on fire, but dude, you're getting like blacklisted from college. But that's not the case. This is how it goes. This like half-assed camaraderie where it's like, hey, you can get something out of Valorant, because going pro is really, really hard. This is a way.
Yeah, so this is another point that I extremely agree with. The people in Collegiate, essentially, here's my opinion. Most people that have collegiate scholarships don't necessarily deserve them because they don't actually put in the same amount of effort, right? Realistically, my thought process when you're playing at a really good school and playing for Collegiate and getting paid for it, it doesn't matter how much your scholarship is, it's a duty, it's a task. I didn't get that big of a scholarship in my last school, and that was completely fine by me. I really didn't care. But there were other people on that roster that got more scholarship money than me that didn't put any effort in at all, right? And honestly, it's really fucking annoying. And it happens in every collegiate school. We would absolutely obliterate collegiate teams that got full rides, and it's because they don't care. They use Valorant as a tool to extend themselves. They don't really care about the game. They don't try very hard, and they suck. On the other hand, there are some teams that actually put in time. They have executes, they have strats, they have coordination, and they actually try a lot. But those teams sometimes they don't even have scholarships, right? It's really a double-edged sword in Collegiate, which I think is really annoying. And in my opinion, it goes with a mentality that I think a lot of people have, especially when you're in that 17 to 21 years old sort of time frame. of life as most collegiate players are, and even tier 3 players. They essentially have this idea that being good at something without putting in a lot of effort into it is somehow amusing, that is somehow cool, right? And it's something that is makes them better than someone else, right? Which realistically it doesn't. People that put in hard effort to be good at something, or to be realistically to be great, not good, is extremely amazing, right? And for me, it's really heartbreaking to see people have that mentality, right? And are really, it really pisses me off that anyone would ever try to make fun of someone for working hard or putting an effort into something, right? Because, you know, working hard is a good quality. It's a very amazing quality to have, and not a lot of people have it. So yeah, this is a really rampant thing in collegiate community. This is 100% right, and it makes honestly other people look pretty shit. To be honest with you, I definitely didn't put in as much effort as I possibly could have. I'm just gonna lay it right out, right? And you know, I can make an excuse and say that other people didn't put it in, so I stopped. But no, to be honest with you, that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what people around you and how much effort that they are putting in. You have to put in the effort no matter what the standard is on your team, okay? Your team might only scrim like once a day, and then they have like 3 matches a week, right? It just doesn't matter. If you see that not everybody else is putting in the effort, don't let that be an excuse for you to not put in the effort as well. Put in as much effort as you're willing to do, right? And if you have an obligation to the team, if you're getting paid, right, to do this, essentially is what scholarships are. It's money rewarded to you for your achievements and your ability to do something. Put in the fucking effort, dude. Like, and honestly, to all esports directors out there, you should just fucking pull it, man. Like, realistically, like, fuck that kid. Because let me tell you, there are kids out there that will come to Collegiate and that will put in an insane amount of effort and, you know, try as hard as they possibly can, you know, and you'll actually get more value out of everything at the end of the day.
Way more sustainable, stable way to go. I get it. You know, to younger talent, trying to recruit them as fast as possible. And parents would love their child to get a degree, right? Rather than sit there in their room all day and play ranked stream and, you know, try to go pro, because they don't know what that means, right? You know, everybody's probably encountered something like that with a family member or a guardian, whatever it is, where they're like, get off the computer, and you're like, no, I'm like working, I'm like practicing, I'm like, just pause the game, you know what I mean? Shit like that. So I think it's dangerous to commit instantaneously when you're younger to a school, because you want to operate in this like 18 to like 21-year-old phase, in my opinion. If you really do care about Valorant and you are passionate, you want to operate in that 18 to 21-year-old range of working hard. Don't commit to something just because it like sounds good for 4 years, because that's a lot of time, right? Being able to actually like work on yourself,
yeah, I think this is really important. I kind of cut it off on the statement, but I think that he is 100% correct on this, that you shouldn't commit to something. For me, I didn't go to college until I was 19. You know, it was something that I, you know, kind of realized that I wanted to do, right? For me, what I kind of realized is one thing that I wanted to do, and that is learn another language, is going to be a lot easier to do while going to college, right? And getting the things that I would need in order to teach that language and use it to its 100% maximum potential, right? And, you know, there's other things like writing, for example. I realized that any college education that they could give me with that specifically isn't necessarily worth the money, right? Like, I can learn all of this stuff about writing and what I need to be good at that on the internet, right? With free videos, with things that are like $20 for like a book to read about how to write and things like that, right? As long as you do the research. Whereas language, right? It's a lot easier having someone instruct you on it who is native to the language, right? And also, you know, doing other things like having the college experience, living away from home and interacting with people, meeting new people, and learning things that you think you can't necessarily learn by yourself. as well as it adds structure, which a lot of people need. For me, I need structure. It's something that is important to me. That's why I don't like people being late. It just really bothers me. I like things to be set at a time to do it. Otherwise, for me, I either lose track of it, I don't do it, or whatever, right? But the one thing that I want to touch is this kind of idea that taking the risk to go pro and, you know, not doing anything besides just play ranked and stream. I think that is not great. I think what you need to do when you're in that 18 to 19, you know, to 20, 21 range is find a job that you can do and also compete, right? Work like a part-time job, even where, you know, you work earlier in the day. So later at night when tournaments and things are going on, you can compete, right? And do those things. That's what I did for a while. Now, I didn't put in the effort that I could have. I will be 100% on that. I was a really bad place and I wasn't the person that I should have been at that time period. So I didn't get anything out of it. But realistically, someone who works part-time and puts in a lot of effort can do that. There's a guy named Red Dot. Shout out to you, big guy, if you're watching this, but you're probably not. He is very notorious in the tier 3 scene for being a very good IGL, and he wants to put in the effort. He has a part-time job. So he isn't just playing Valorant, but he also has the ability to make a roster, play with really good players, and compete in a tier 3 level, and potentially, hopefully someday, tier 1. You know, hopes of him. He's a great guy. But you know, I think that it's the way that he says it. It's probably not what he intended to phrase it as. But just a big heads up, don't do that. Always have a way to make money for yourself and, you know, have that because, you know, shit happens and unfortunately you need money to survive. So just be careful with that.
On your brand, work on your career. Fisher. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams. Who's the main?
Fisher is like a fake college, pretty much, is what everyone has agreed. Fisher does this in every esport, so him using this is kind of a naive look into Collegiate because not every collegiate program is like this. I know most collegiate programs limit to pretty much a Team A, Team B, and Team C. Fisher is basically an esports college is essentially what it is. They flood every esport with a fuck ton of teams, and leagues are actually cracking down on that to limit it. And essentially, like, Fisher just wants to milk as much talent as possible. Is really what it is, right? And give themselves the biggest chance of winning prize money and things like that. It is not reflective of most collegiate programs, and most collegiate programs don't even have the funding to do this or anything like that. So or like the operations to do this. And all these Fisher teams are awful to each other. I know that for a fact. I have talked to people. I have played against these Fisher teams. Every single time I played against a Fisher team, I Goomba stomp them. So yeah. Listen, man. Using them as an example is not great, T-Dawg. You probably didn't know that, but everyone at Collegiate knows that these guys are absolute frauds. They definitely don't go to class. Cause you know, some motherfuckers are like, yeah, so we practice for like, you know, 8 hours a day. Motherfucker, do you do anything besides do that? Cause okay, practicing for 8 hours a day isn't crazy, right? But talking about that as like scrims and everything like that, and also playing ranked, that's where that's crazy, in my opinion, right? You can get away with practicing for 8 hours a day. Scrimming for 8 hours a day, like a fucking pro team, that's complete horseshit, and you would be far better if you did that. There's no way that these guys actually do that, right? That guy was definitely exaggerating, but if he wasn't, holy fuck, Fisher, your teams are shit, because if I can beat them, that's pretty fucking bad. No shade to them, though, right? I don't really know the situation, but I'm just saying, that's my retrospective on it.
Team. Who's the main team? They're not fully committed. They don't actually.
So he's talking about people who aren't fully committed. I think jumping outside of like Collegiate and Tier 3 and things like that, and you know, teams like being pretty much like free agent pug teams in Collegiate, I think I completely understand that. But I think that there are some collegiate programs like Blinn and Winthrop as an example that actually do sort of play with each other outside of this. And personally, I think that it's really weird that collegiate teams or teams that are like really good collegiate teams don't play tier 3. And I think that's more of a thing, not necessarily on collegiate, but more so on who is in collegiate, right? I think a lot of people are club teams, so they do this as like a little extracurricular activity and not like actually trying to go pro, right? Or do that. But yeah, I also think that there are some programs that put their like just give their team too many matches. Like if they're in like 5 leagues, I think that's crazy. Personally, what I would like to see is a lot of collegiate teams have like, hey, we have CVAL and then we have NACE and then like maybe another league, but mainly just like 2. So then they have the ability to on weekends play in these Mr. Funhaver tournaments, which also again, it depends on the league, right? Because all of my matches were scheduled on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And things like that, and people that I've talked to that are a lot better players than me mainly have their matches on weekdays and not Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So I think it's more of like a preference thing than anything else, to be honest. So
actually put in 100%. That is that this is not a path to pro. That's all that actually matters here. Collegiate is where, again, I hate to be the one to say it, but dreams go to die. You commit so much of your time and effort to this. You get involved into other stuff. There's no actual way of making it and going pro because you can't even play on a tier 3 team. You can't even play on a challengers team properly because you have all this other stuff on your table. I would easily say that a team like Blinn Esports, a team like Winthrop, if these guys got to play a season as like a free agent team even in challengers, I think they would do better. I think they would do better. They don't have the burden of all this other stuff that they have to deal with. I think that they would do better. So again, real reason that I wanted to talk about this today was just to like hash out like a lot of stuff. I just think that this is just so oversaturated, and people just like make it seem like it's the greatest thing in the entire world. Every single thing I've heard from my friends in Collegiate is that people don't try and they don't take it serious.
Which is true, by the way.
Stuff happening all the time.
Mm-hmm.
People don't put in time to get better. They're just there for the scholarship.
Yep.
Great. Stability is there. You can be there for 4 years. And if you actually care about the game and have passion, you'll probably be miserable the entire time. But hey, if you get a degree and make some friends, that's great. Because if you half-ass your way through college and Collegiate Valorant, and then you show up 4 years older, hey guys, anybody in? No one's interested in you. You didn't go down the dark path. You didn't go down the hard one. You didn't actually get it forged through the flames. It was the easy, safe one. But hey, at least you got something out of it, right?
So I think that this is kind of weird because he says all these awful things about Collegiate. He says that it's not an easy path to pro. He says it's not an easy path to tier 2, but he still paints it as like this easy thing, right? That is so easy and so great, but there's a lot of downsides to that, right? You are in college, you probably have a part-time job, and you're also playing Collegiate Valorant, and you're spread pretty thin. You don't have much of a social life. You're actually putting in the effort and things like that, right? So I think that definitely there are some people where this applies to, where it is the easy road for them. They don't really do anything, but those are people that half-ass life, not just a Collegiate Valorant player, right? Those are people who have that half-assed personality, not people who are actually hardworking and things like that. And I think that that is the only really critique that I have of this video. T-Dawg, if you see this, which you're not gonna fucking watch this, there's probably no point. But that's my only critique, is that a lot of the assumptions that you make about collegiate teams and players, most of the time it's not necessarily the path that is so terrible, but it's the mindset of people who go down that path. Right? I think that there are a lot of people who want to really work hard and want to see this come out here and, try their best and put in the effort. And it's really kind of disheartening that Collegiate gets the reputation, even though it's mainly just the players, right? It's not necessarily, this could be really good, right? A steady, stable system where you can play against fairly good players who actually try and put effort. But the way that it's handled by directors and the community is extremely horseshit, to be honest.
So That's all I really have. I want to really hear what everybody has to say about it. I know that I'm kind of being like harsh and like a dickhead about it, and I'll try to
You're real for that, T-Dog. I love you. You're my goat, by the way.
I think Collegiate is a good option for people who are undecided or don't know where to go, don't know what their next step is, because you can get a degree from it and you can actually have a positive out of Valorant rather than it's not flipping a coin. It's like a 1% chance that things go right for you. You behave yourself and you're there in the right place at the right time and you get an opportunity. But at the end of the day, it is not a path to pro. It is not a path to tier 1. It's a path to tier 2. Collegiate. It's a path to tier 2. You do good in there, right? You have good stats. You actually have passion and you care for the game, so you still try to play in like tier 3 tournaments. You can actually get noticed and potentially picked up by a challengers team, by a high qualifier placing, tier 3 team, whatever it is. And then you can actually invest your time into that and start making progress. But by no means is CVAL, Red Bull, all this stuff. This does not correlate to going pro. It's not there. It's its own separate thing. It's a great thing. People should take advantage of it. But that's it. Okay, so again, I'd like to hear what everybody has to say in the comments. I'm really interested in that stuff. Like, it's not serious at all. Am I being ridiculous when I'm saying that stuff? Like, it's not serious at all, right? Or is it more of a thing where, it's unfortunately accurate? Where, there are a bunch of FFs every single, tournament that you play. There are a bunch of teams who don't take it serious at all. And there are a bunch of teams who probably get like full rides and stuff like that and maybe are able to invest like more time, and they kind of like smurf the league compared to other teams who have jobs and stuff like that. But I just think it's a totally limiting thing. And it's crazy to think that like your stability, sure. No one has ever, said anything about that actually matters here. Collegiate is where, again, I hate to be the one to say it, but dreams go to die. There's no actual way of making it and going pro because you have all this other stuff on your tape, like Blinn Esports, free agent team even. They don't have the burden of all this other, again, real reason that I wanted to talk about this too. This is just so oversaturated and it doesn't work. Collegiate is a path to tier 2, and here they are, losing qualifiers. These guys aren't bad at the game, because of this. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. You should go get your degree. It's not going to be there forever. It's not a path to tier 1. Yes. You can have your stability. Sure.
Let me try to look in the comments because I can't find the timestamp and I didn't write it down. But there is a part of this video where he says that in prac rooms, some collegiate players, including collegiate players that are in challengers, that are on a collegiate team, he did not mention which one. So it's either Winthrop or Blinn. And to be honest, I kind of think I know the answer, even though I really don't want to know. Where they use like slurs and they don't take it seriously and they're horrible people. And that is true. I've had that on my own team. That player is no longer affiliated with the esports director at that school, so don't worry about it. They handled it. But yeah, it's crazy. There's awful people, and it's really bad, especially when you're in a collegiate setting, because those players are usually like they have to compete. They are the only players that that can compete because they have to be in your college. So when that happens, a team explodes or it becomes super uncomfortable. For me, it was awful. My last 2 months at my school was absolutely horseshit. The land that we went to was enjoyable, for sure, right? But again, I think that we definitely could have gotten more out of it if it wasn't, as awful, because that guy gets to come and, to be honest, it just kind of lingers in your head when someone says something extremely horrible and is just a not great person, and it really sucks. And I think that honestly, if we put in more effort as a team and together, and there was like a standard for, hey, you have to practice, you have to do this, you have to go to classes as well, and you have to, do those things, I think it would have worked out a lot better for everyone involved. Yeah, this is kind of my take. I know this is a really long video and probably not a lot of people are going to get to this part, but if you got to this part, I genuinely really appreciate it. Just kind of hearing my 2 cents of things. But yeah, shout out Asite, Will, I love you. Collegiate player that I talked to, and he's just a friend for life, to be honest. I really appreciate everything that he did last year and, just being my friend, even though we had a hard time last year with our team. So leave a like and subscribe, guys. See you later. Peace.